I woke up with sand in my mouth and footprints on my bedroom floor that weren't mine. It started normal. Completely normal. Late night in my apartment, around 1 a.m., just sitting at my desk scrolling on my phone before sleep. The window was slightly open, letting in warm air and distant traffic noise. Nothing unusual. Just another quiet night. I remember getting up to grab a glass of water from the kitchen and coming back to the room half asleep already. Dropped the phone on the desk, turned off the main light, left only the lamp on. That's when I heard it. A soft scraping sound near the floor. Like something being dragged slowly across the hallway outside. I stood still for a few seconds, listening. Then it stopped. Silence came back, and everything felt normal again. After that, it didn't happen the same way twice. The next night was quiet again. Too quiet. No traffic outside. No neighbors. No random apartment noise. Just silence sitting in the room like something heavy. I was already in bed, trying to sleep, when I heard it again. Same scraping sound. Slower this time. Not in the hallway. Closer. Right outside my bedroom door. My heartbeat picked up immediately. I stayed still, staring at the ceiling, listening hard. Tried to keep my breathing steady so I could hear better. The sound dragged once, then stopped. A few seconds later, something lightly touched the door. Not a knock. More like fingers brushing against the wood. My legs tensed under the blanket. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Just waited. Nothing happened for almost a minute. Then the air changed. That heavy silence again. Like the whole apartment was holding its breath. I slowly turned my head toward the door, expecting to see a shadow under it. Nothing. Just darkness. The feeling of being watched hit out of nowhere. Not a thought. A physical feeling. Like someone standing close enough to hear breathing. My chest tightened and I forced myself to stay still, counting seconds in my head. Then, just like before, it stopped. The pressure lifted. The silence broke. Distant traffic came back. And whatever had been near the door was gone again. Sleep got weird after that. Not instantly bad, just off in a way that was hard to explain. I started waking up in the middle of the night for no reason, usually around the same time, somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m. Every time it happened, my body felt tense like I had been awake for hours already. The room would be quiet. Too quiet. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself it was just anxiety or stress from work. Some nights I could fall back asleep. Other nights I just stayed awake until morning. Time started feeling strange too. There were mornings where I felt like I had slept for 10 hours, but the clock said only 3 had passed. Other times I'd close my eyes for what felt like a few minutes and suddenly it was morning. My head started hurting more often. Nothing extreme. Just dull pressure behind the eyes and a light ringing in my ears when everything got quiet. I blamed screens. Blamed lack of sleep. Blamed caffeine. It made more sense that way. Small habits changed without me noticing. I started checking the bedroom door before sleeping. Then checking it again after turning off the lights. Sometimes getting up just to make sure it was still locked. The apartment felt different at night now. Not dangerous. Just occupied. Like someone else was somewhere in the space, moving quietly when I wasn't paying attention. I kept telling myself it was just nerves. New stress. Bad sleep cycle. Overthinking. But then it started happening outside the bedroom. I'd hear faint floor sounds in the living room while brushing my teeth. Soft movement in the hallway while making coffee early in the morning. Same slow dragging noise. Same silence right after. That's when it started feeling wrong. Because whatever had been near that door didn't seem limited to the bedroom anymore. It felt like it was already inside the apartment. That's when I started searching. Late at night, phone in hand, lights off, just scrolling in bed instead of sleeping. At first I looked for normal explanations. Sleep issues. Apartment noises. Old building problems. Nothing matched. So I went deeper. Forum threads. Old Reddit posts. Random discussion boards that looked half dead. Stories from people in different cities, different countries, different years. Same kind of experiences. Strange silence at night. Soft dragging sounds. Feeling watched while trying to sleep. Waking up at the same hours over and over again. Something slowly getting closer inside the house. Some posts were short. Some were long and messy, like people typing while scared. Most of them ended the same way. They stopped posting. One thread stood out, buried deep in an old forum with almost no activity. A few people were talking about something that shows up during sleep cycles and leaves small traces of sand or dust near beds and doorways. Only one person mentioned a name. Sandman Killer. No big explanation. No long story. Just a warning that once the pattern starts, it usually keeps moving closer. And almost nobody who described the full progression ever posted again. That's when the fears started changing. It didn't feel random anymore. Reading those stories made everything line up in a way I didn't like. Same kind of routine. Same late nights. Same quiet apartments. Same people who spent a lot of time alone. People who stayed awake too long. People who kept irregular sleep schedules. People who noticed small things and kept thinking about them. That part bothered me the most, because it sounded a lot like my own habits. Working late. Sleeping at random hours. Spending most nights in silence with no background noise. Paying attention to every little sound in the apartment. Maybe that was enough. Maybe noticing it was already part of the problem. After that, my behavior started changing without me fully deciding to change it. I stopped sitting in the living room at night. Started going straight to the bedroom and keeping lights on longer than usual. Sometimes I'd leave the TV running just to fill the silence. I avoided looking down dark hallways. Avoided standing near the bedroom door too long. Even reflections started making me uncomfortable. Bathroom mirror. TV screen when it was off. Windows at night. I caught myself checking them more often, making sure nothing was standing behind me. I also stopped saying anything about it out loud. Not to friends. Not on calls. Not even to myself. The name stayed in my head, but I never spoke it again. Like saying it would somehow make things worse. After a while, this routine started feeling normal. Checking doors twice. Listening before moving. Sleeping with low noise in the background. Watching corners without realizing it. And that was the part that felt wrong. Because fear wasn't the main feeling anymore. It was adjustment. Like slowly adapting to something living in the same space. And honestly, adapting to it felt worse than being scared of it. The mistake happened on a night when I was too tired to think. No noise in the apartment. No traffic outside. Just that heavy silence again. I woke up around 3 a.m. and stayed still, waiting for the usual feeling to pass. The room felt occupied, like something was already there, standing somewhere in the dark. Then I heard it. Soft movement near the foot of the bed. Slow, careful, like someone adjusting their position on the floor. Normally I would keep my eyes closed and ignore it. Pretend nothing was happening and wait for sleep to take over again. But that night I didn't. I opened my eyes. Just slightly. Enough to look toward the end of the bed. There was a shape there. Still, standing in the darkness. Not moving. Not approaching. Just present. And instead of closing my eyes again, I kept looking at it. Breathing slow. Heart steady. Almost calm. That's when the air in the room changed. The silence got heavier. Closer. And I understood something immediately. Looking at it meant the boundary was gone. Time feels strange now. Some nights pass normally. Sleep comes, morning comes, everything feels quiet and predictable. Other nights feel stretched, like hours are longer than they should be, and silence sits in every room. I don't check the clock as much anymore. It doesn't really help. The apartment feels the same during the day. Light comes in, outside noise returns, routine keeps moving. Nothing looks wrong. At night it's different. Not scary the way it was before. Just familiar. Like sharing space with something that doesn't need to move anymore. I still wake up sometimes in the middle of the night and stare at the ceiling, waiting for that heavy silence to pass. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it stays longer than expected. Fear isn't sharp now. It's dull, quiet, more like awareness than panic. And the worst part isn't the silence or the presence. It's realizing that sleep doesn't feel like rest anymore. It feels like permission.